we used to like find an agent in the local area by calling a friend or going in some, Facebook group or something. Not now. Now people just go on, type in, real estate agent in, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and boom, you just look at the ones with the most reviews pop up at the top, and this person's serious enough, full-time enough to have lots of reviews that with it to know to do that. And then the agent will reach out and refer a client to them. Hey guys, welcome to the show. Got some exciting topics to discuss. And this one's come at me, over the years, as many of you know, we run one of the largest real estate coaching and consulting companies out there. And no matter whether, my coaches are talking to our clients about it, or I'm up speaking someplace and people are coming up to me after I speak. We just hear this all the time from the agent population out there. And the question is always, what are the best lead sources? And I think it's such a hard topic to answer, and it really frustrates so many different agents because they just want to know. I just want to skip the peas and the vegetables and the potatoes and get right to the steak. Just tell me, what are the best lead sources? What should I be doing? And the answer always includes a depends in it. It just depends, and it's just a long answer too, and it kind of frustrates us in the coaching world, the supposed experts, trying to answer that, simply and quickly in an elevator speech type of answer. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to actually try to do it. I'm going to try to do it relatively concisely here to fit in the confines of one show and or at least episode, and try to kind of untangle this mess. And I'm going to try to rank them. I'm going to try to rank the different lead sources out there for real estate agents. Couple things about it. I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to discuss the type of lead source, of course. I have to discuss the contact rate. That's important because they all require different types of contact rates to contact, to follow up, attempts. Because I just wish, you got leads delivered to you gift wrapped and you could just open them and then there'd be a commission there. But oftentimes you have to chase them down a bit and keep trying to make contact and things like that. So, because that has to be taken into consideration, the amount of contacts an agent must make to be able to convert that lead. And then cost, I think, is something that must be discussed with all of them too, the relative costs, because costs can vary tremendously. So we will talk about those. And I'm going to try to do this kind of from the bottom up, although, so I'm gonna go with the leads that probably have the lowest conversion rate, all the way up to the leads that have the highest conversion rate over time. And I'm going to do that by starting with outbound versus inbound leads. I'm going to break them into those two big categories. And generally speaking, inbound leads, which is a lead that comes to you, that doesn't need to be generated out of thin air. Like an outbound lead, you've kind of got to generate out of thin air. You've got to take some out activity to reach out to generate it. Whereas an inbound lead typically comes to you, and typically that's through an email inbox or a text or something like that digitally. So we're going to start with the inbound leads. They generally have the lower conversion rates anyway. So I think it's just kind of an easier way to start there. Again, we're talking in a lot of generalities, but I will tell you these are pretty good numbers because, we coach, as many of you know, many of the highest producing agents, teams, brokerages throughout North America. And so we have a pretty good selection of survey data, since a lot of those guys are the tops in all their relative multiple listing services and areas and counties and regions. So they do big numbers and they work with a lot of leads. So we can actually see pretty accurate numbers over the years here. So I'll try to do that. So let's start out with your online leads. I'll probably start out there with the concept of forced registration leads. And these are often pay-per-click or PPC, which means you pay for them based upon whether someone clicks on your advertisement. Okay. And that advertisement, usually in a lot of these companies will actually do the advertising end of it for you. Or you could go on things like Google, search engines, or social media like Facebook and or Instagram are the most popular, and pay-per-click or PPC leads. The reason we call them forced registration is, generally speaking, we force people to register to be able to access some sort of information. And most of the time that's going to be searching for homes. And you'd be shocked with all the free websites to search out there. You could put an ad out about searching for homes and people will still give you an email address and or a phone number to be able to search because it's right in front of them right now. So there's some little box that pops up on the screen and says, hey, you know, you like this ad, you want to see this house, just input these quick little bits of free information. We'll open up the gateway and you can come through and take a look. That's forced registration. We force them to register with us. And then they start looking. And then that information quickly goes to the agent that paid for the ad or posted the ad or what have you. And that's why they're called forced registration leads. Now, the reason forced registration leads have a low conversion rate is because nowhere in there did this person, this user that gave the information really expect to be contacted. And generally speaking, for you to convert that lead, you have to contact it right away. So speed to lead is very important. The old adage has got to be within 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes, really should be under 3 minutes. And all of a sudden they're getting a phone call and they're like, wow, I didn't expect that. Now, some people are impressed by it. And you're really just calling as customer service saying, hey, I saw you registered on the website. Wanted to be able to offer any help, and we can go into all the different scripts you can use there at some point. But, that's a low conversion rate because they didn't expect or even really consent to being contacted. So generally speaking, we'll say we're looking at 1% to 2% conversion rate on forced registration leads, especially on social media. That can go up to 2 to 3% on search engines or Google PPC leads. And the reason for that difference is on Facebook, often people aren't really setting out to look for houses or information about what their home might sell for on the listing side of things. They're on there just scrolling, bored, checking out their friends' posts. Whereas, let's say search engine or Google PPC forced registration leads, we're banking on people going on Google and typing in homes for sale in a particular city, for example, homes for sale in Atlanta, Georgia, and all of a sudden your PPC ad might pop up. So this is someone who's actually predisposed to looking for the specified information that you're delivering in your ad. So that's why the conversion rate typically goes up to 2 to 3. I've seen teams with 4 and 5% conversion rates. That's getting pretty high on forced registration, though. I always bank on 2 to 3%. For search engine forced registration and 1 to 2% for social media. I think those are safe averages. People will promise higher rates or say they do higher rates and things like that. I'm just telling you that these are good, safe, conservative average numbers out there, okay? And they're honest. So that's where those are at there. Now, another problem with the social media forced registration leads is they're typically much further out. I mean, you're probably not going to convert that for a year. Because like I said, they weren't even looking, for houses. They, if they saw something they like, it wasn't someone who's that set out. So, they can be closer and sooner and more urgent. Sure, that does happen. But the average lead is much further out, so we always say about a year out. So you're doing a lot of follow-ups and a lot of contacts there to stay in touch over time, it's trying to send them information, trying to add value. With where the Google and the forced registration, the search engine leads, they're oftentimes 6 months, 7 months, 8 months out. So a little closer because they were looking online for ways to search for homes. So they're typically a little closer out, but again, you got to stay in touch and add value and try to build rapport over that period of time, whether even 6, 7 months. I mean, you better be trying to help them and add value and find out about them and build some sort of relationship via phone, email, text, maybe even getting an in-person appointment eventually and going. That's why, there's I would say on average, your social media forced registration leads typically cost about, $6 per lead, whereas your forced registration, you're looking $9 to $10 per lead. And your conversion rates I already told you about 1 to 2% versus 2, 3, 4% for the Google. Typically these are all buyer leads too, for the most part. I'd say with, social media, you're probably looking at 95% buyer leads. You're not going to get a lot of listings that way, but they do happen. Of course, people also want to buy and they have a home to sell too. So you can get 2 for 1 there. It's usually how it happens on those. And same with Google forced registration. You're probably looking at about 85% buyer, 90% buyer, 10 to 15% seller. It's a little higher number because they often are so early in the home search that they actually do have a home to sell. It's because they're methodically going online and typing that in. So you get a lot, not as many first-time home buyers as you would on social media. So that's another reason why, the cost per lead goes up a little bit, right? Then you jump up to your next level of lead that you can pay for. And these are your premium portals, right? I think traditionally you're talking Zillow, you're talking Realtor.com and places like that. Even Ylopo gets up into leads like that. And there's tons of other companies, but these are premium portal leads. And what they do is, we'll talk about Realtor.com and Zillow just because they're the most prolific out there. There's 2 ways you can work with them. And and it depends on your geographic area. If you're in your geographic area, that they still allow to pay for leads where you can pay a monthly fee, and it's much more expensive. I mean, we're talking depending on geographic demographics, it could be anywhere from $100 a lead up to $300 a lead in some of the larger metros. Up and down the east and west coast of North America, they get real expensive, right? And that's how much you may pay, but the conversion rates are much higher. You're usually looking around, anywhere from 7% to 15% for premium portal leads. So much higher conversion rate, much less contacts required because of it. With 1 to 2% conversion rate with Facebook forced registration, you might have to contact 100 people just to get one of them to convert. That's 100 contacts, whereas you only have to contact 10, let's say, Zillow leads that you're paying for to get one that converts ultimately. It's a lot less time, a lot less energy. Facebook and Google forced registration probably has the lowest conversion rates out there. It requires lots of contacts. I mean, you'll see people say, hey, I don't want to do any outbound prospecting at all. I don't want to call FSBOs or expireds. Well, guys, so then they buy leads. Well, they have to do way more contacts than they would with those types of outbound prospecting. And you're, more buyer focused with the outbound, buyer focused with the inbound forced registration, whether it be Google or Facebook, let's say. Where you get, much more desirable seller listing prospecting with FSBOs and expireds, for example. So another different, the percentage of buyer versus seller comes into play here as well too on these. Anyway, back to our inbound leads, our premium portals. The reason that conversion rate is so much better than with forced registration leads is because we're not forcing these people to register. People go on Zillow, let's say, just to look for free without registering for anything over and over again. And then it isn't until they say, I want to contact that agent with that listing, and you click a button, that the lead goes to the agent that's paying Zillow, in a nutshell. And then you call them and you're actually responding like a customer service request, right? So now you're like, hey, can I help you? That's very, very valuable because it's a much more well-received lead that you can convert at a high level. Hi, this is Brian Icenhower. Saw you were on Zillow and you wanted this home. Just following up on Zillow's behalf. And all of a sudden you're customer service rather than some surprise outbound, telemarketer calling them like you often get perceived as with forced registration leads. So that's why that conversion rate does go up. They oftentimes are only 3 or 4 months out because these are people on Zillow saying, I want to talk to an agent. So, they could be looking right now. I'd say on average, we're talking 3 months out. So a lot less contacts that way. Again, the conversion rate's much higher, getting up to 10, 11, 12% conversion rate on average, right? You get a much higher percentage of listings too, because these people are very, very purposeful and they're educated about the process. So they are looking for free without just jumping on forced registration. So a lot less first-time home buyers. They have a home to sell too oftentimes. And so I'd probably say 70% buyer leads with these as well too. You may be in an area where Zillow and Realtor.com actually take a referral fee instead. With Zillow, they call it the Flex program. With Realtor.com, they call it their Op City program, and some other things, different names depending on your geographic location as well too, where instead of paying a big monthly amount, you actually pay a referral fee, which actually ends up, it's usually 25 to 35% of your closing amount. And you'll have to pay it. Now it's more money, but some people it's more desirable because you don't have to pay a monthly fee, but it actually ends up costing you more. But agents are a little bit more sensitive to the monthly bills oftentimes, so it can be desirable for some. To get on the referral fee program, they do limit that. So you do need to show a track record of converting at a high level. To get there, you almost have to audition for that one by paying the monthly fees or proving to them that you have the production that can convert at a high level, because that's the only way that those portals get paid, is by you converting successfully. So they want to make sure you're good at it. So again, Flex program, Op City program, Zillow, Realtor.com respectively. And that's how that works. And you pay a hefty fee for that too, if you want to do that. All right, moving on. Then I would say the last major category of online lead sources is Google local service ads. And that's when you type into Google, hey, I need a realtor or homes for sale in a particular area. You type in that city name and you'll see a bunch of agents come across the top all of a sudden. It's like 3 agents are listed at the top of the screen and people click on those. And to get yourself to show up there is you have to have a Google My Business profile or Google Business Suite profile. Get lots of Google reviews will help you show up there. And then you got to pay per lead. And we have a whole course on this and we coach on this. It's a little bit more complex because Google local service ads are very, very desirable, and a lot of listings too. Probably 50% listings, 50% buyers. You only have to pay per lead. And it's not, nearly as bad as the premium portals. It's, usually on average, we found it to be $30 to $50 per lead by the time you're all said and done with it after you, paid for a lot of leads. So it's not too bad that way either. Your conversion rate's even a little bit higher than the premium portals. You're usually up to 10 to 15% conversion rate on Google local service ads. They're a little bit more organic because people are just searching and just clicking up there and you're calling back. They're clicking and they're asking to contact you just like the portals, and you're calling back and say, hey, just wanted to reach out and help you. I saw you wanted to chat, and there you go. It's also a major way that agents refer business now. I mean, we used to find an agent in the local area by calling a friend or going in some, Facebook group or something. Not now. Now people just go on, type in, real estate agent in, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and boom, you just look at the ones with the most reviews pop up at the top, and this person's serious enough, full-time enough to have lots of reviews that with it to know to do that. And then the agent will reach out and refer a client to them. So you get tons of agent referrals through Google local service ads. So boy, if you haven't done that, it is kind of complex, kind of hard to learn on your own. It gets very frustrating because you see people have lots of reviews. This one, get a coach for. Get a coach for a lot of things, but this is one that gets a little complex. We do have a course on it. If you go to Icenhowercoaching.com, you can check out all of our online courses, and we have a course on Google, and that's a big part of it. So we can show you that as well too. So that one's a little bit, that's probably definitely the top of the online lead source funnel. It's probably a close tie, because then we'll move straight into the outbound prospecting conversion rates, right? Outbound prospecting, I'd start with farming and circle prospecting, which I love. Again, now we're going to start getting very listing centric. These are all heavy on the listing side, right? When you start going outbound prospecting. So on the listing side, you will get buyers out of listings, of course. That's the best way to get buyers. They'll come to you through open houses and your online ads when you advertise these listings. But you're going to usually start on the listing side with these, which are, again, much more desirable, mainly because they generate buyer leads. So, even the Google LSA might compete with circle prospecting and farming. And circle prospecting is where you're prospecting around, either door knocking or phone calling around a listing, either just listed, just sold, open houses, those types of things, different status changes throughout the neighborhood. And of course you can do, bulk texts and bulk voicemails, lots of different ways to do this. Again, get a coach if you want to know how to master it. But I'd put that at, usually up there, like about 100 to 1 for prospecting contacts. You need to make about 100 contacts to get one conversion on that. But again, very heavy listing side, and you develop a lot of, it's a way to start a farm over time because people get to know who you are. And again, just for conversion rates, I mean, it's different for different people, right? A beginning prospector who's actually working the phone a lot, if we're going to use telephone contacts, they can usually make 1 to 5 contacts per hour. And, an experienced person, that's been prospecting for a while, they make a lot more contacts, right? They're usually 10, 12, 13, even up to 15 contacts per hour. So it just kind of varies on how good you are at it, how fast you are at it, how you can, stay at it. I mean, then if you go, that's how many contacts you can make, which means someone picks up the phone. Then how many contacts you can convert to appointments. A beginner could be 150 contacts just to get 1 appointment. An experienced person, 25 to 1. In the middle range, 71, so that just depends, it takes time to get good at that. So a lot of people try it, hate it, and see terrible rates before they get good. And well, that's kind of the way it works. Then we move up to FSBO prospecting, right? Contacting for sale by owners, which is very painful because they typically do not value agents. That's why they're listing it themselves. I put them at about a 40 to 45 to 1 ratio. They take a lot of follow-up, right? So you got to contact and build rapport. We always say 6 to 8 weeks of trying to add value to them by text, email, phone call. So there is a lag period on those where you're trying to stay with them over time, because immediately you're going to get rejected. You got to build rapport with them and find different ways to work on it. Again, we have courses on circle prospecting, farming, FSBO, some of the other ones I'm about to talk about. We coach on this stuff too. So I can't dive deep into it, but I put them at 45 to 1, but just know there is a lot of follow-up on that. Paying for FSBO leads is very, very inexpensive. We have partnered with all our coaching clients, get severe discounts or heavy discounts at RedX, but there's lots of different companies out there. We recommend RedX. They seem to have the best data, the most phone numbers, cell phone numbers for farming, circle prospecting, FSBOs. And then what I'm going to talk about next is expired listings. Expired listings is a really high conversion rate. That's usually by an experienced person can talk to 20, 25 expireds or even old expireds from a year ago to a year ago. So even though there's not a lot of them in low inventory markets, there's always enough to contact. So top expired prospectors prospect all the time, regardless of how much inventory or how many expire each day, because you got the old numbers too. And it's, so there, you do get, yelled at. People don't like to be contacted a lot, especially the newly expireds, where a lot of other people are calling them every single day. And so there is that pain associated with it. But generally speaking, you'll get an appointment. If you contact, if you're a talented person, if you can contact 25 in one day, you'll get a listing appointment. And that can be done in just a couple hours each day. So that's why a lot of people start out contacting expireds before they've built their sphere of influence or their own database. And they're just cheap. The cost per lead is very, very small. It's $5 a lead, $10 a lead. Same with FSBOs and circle prospecting, all very, very cheap to buy outbound leads. Much more so than a lot of the inbound leads that you have to buy, and you have a higher conversion rate, but you do have to generate them, and you are going to get people, you are calling people that may not be nice back to you. So, you do have to develop some thick skin and a lot of talent, a lot of skill. That's why I recommend a coach. And then sphere of influence is your best. I think that's always your best lead source, always. We coach and train at a ratio of 7 to 1. But that does require 100 different contacts on every member of your sphere of influence database. These are people that know who you are, at least, that you contact throughout the year systematically to stay first of mind. And you do that by using social media and different variations, maybe client events, doing annual analyses. You use the telephone a bit. You don't want to do that too much with these people. You'll turn them off, but then we do texting and emails, and we just continue to add value, stay first to mind, and come from contribution with them over time. And we can get a 7 to 1 return. So for every 7 people in your database, you will receive 1 purchase from them. So if you got 300 people in there, you're going to get 43 transactions a year out of your SOI. So this is by far, and I know it takes a lot of work because you gotta get to know these people, get their contact information, put it in a CRM, set up action plans to do all that. It's not sexy, it's not fun, it's not a magic pill, it's not going to give you a lot of business right away, but there's a reason that the vast majority of top producers all get the majority of their business from their sphere of influence. It's the way you don't have to chase business anymore, pay for business anymore. You can get all the business you want to over time if you build that book of business up. and get that highest conversion rate out there. But it does require some work, but it's very, very inexpensive, relatively speaking, to paying for leads forever. That's for sure. So I highly recommend it. I know you'll love it. Hope that helps. That's our rankings all the way. We'll go back. We'll start with the outbound leads. We're going to talk about forced registration on social media, then forced registration on Google, then up to your premium portal leads, online leads, then your Google local service ad leads and Google ads. And then we'll move into, farming and circle prospecting, then up to for sale by owner, FSBO leads, then expired and canceled listing leads, and then ultimately up to sphere of influence. That's how I'd rank them in the biggest categories out there. There's some that fall between the cracks out there and don't have time for them all, but I think that will really help you. I hope it does at least. Those are your best lead sources for real estate agents ranked. Thank you guys. Can't wait to see you on the next episode.